Welcome to the Event Marketing Sevinar, a 7-minute webinar by Snowball. In this seminar series, you get the tip of the iceberg on pre-to-post event marketing practical tips. I'm your host, Rachel Stefani. Let's break the ice. Hello, Mason. Thank you for joining me today on a new episode of the Tip of the Iceberg Event Marketing Tips podcast.
Yeah, Rachel, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here and chat some event tips and strategies.
Specifically, we want to talk about your playbook to help speakers and exhibitors get the most of their participation at events. And what caught my eye is your latest post about your playbook that got you to book 30 meetings from one event, and the 4D framework that you talk a lot about. What is that framework about, and how do you put it to play?
Yeah, so the 4D framework is relatively simple, but what I found is it's super helpful for actually thinking through and structuring what a playbook should functionally look like. So the first D is data. Data is a mix of targets and triggers. So target being who we're going after, and triggers would be why are we reaching out. And when you have a good target and good triggers, that creates highly personalized, nuanced, and specific messaging. So in the context of an event, let's say you've got a bunch of people that you want to be your buyers that are going to the event. And then the trigger is you have a speaking session that you would like them to attend, and they're going to be at the session. So we've got targets, people at the event. Trigger, they're not currently at your session, you want them to be at your session, which then creates messaging that's specific to them. So that's data. Distribution is then how do we get in front of them? Destination is what are we sending them to? And then lastly, direction is how do we plan to track it? Data, admittedly the most complex, but once you've nailed down data, the rest of it kind of becomes more simple. You just got to figure out what your channels are, what your content or destination is going to look like, and then what tracking success functionally looks like.
So let's say if you're a speaker, you're going to an event, what are some of the steps that you would do given this playbook that you just described?
Yes, I mean, the first thing is if I'm a speaker, my primary goal and objective before my session is actually not to sell people or book meetings, but get people to the session. I have maybe 30
Let's get them in the door.
Yeah, like maybe have 30 minutes or an hour where I can essentially in a one-to-many fashion educate 100, 200, 300, sometimes 500 people. As I think about it, that's the primary goal, which means from a data perspective, I need to figure out who's not coming to my session, but is at the event. Now, there's a ton of ways that you can functionally do that. On the playbook that we referenced of 30 meetings from one event, they had an event app where you could actually see people that stated what their interests were. So, for example, this event had a category for account-based marketing, which is what I talk about a lot. So I could segment by people that were interested in account-based marketing, but were not at my session. So that was the trigger. I knew they wanted to hear about account-based marketing. They weren't coming to my thing. Figured, hey, like, let me do a one-to-one personalized outreach that says, hey, I'm doing this session at this time. It looks like you're trying to learn more about account-based marketing. We're focused on how to take the first step in actually building out an ABM program. So if you've not done that successfully previously, this might be a helpful session for you. So then in that context, distribution was actually the event app. Destination, pretty clear, come to my session. And then tracking was, did we see an increase in registrants for the session or people that actually attended? So that's the 4D framework played out in practice.
Interesting. I guess it's easy for speakers because in a way you're educating, you're not selling directly. Yeah. One of the biggest struggle is the follow-up, the post-event. What do you do with that? And what kind of, if we're talking about leading with content and some pieces to educate and then keep driving them back to you, post-events, what are some of ideas that you can follow up with to target these key accounts?
This is something that I think speakers should do. From the stage, we did it at this last event. I had my COO with me and my account executive, and actually pointed at our account executive and said, if you just want to get helped while we're here, talk to myself or my COO. We're not going to sell you. We're just going to help you. And then it gave people very clear expectations of what they should get based on the person that they're speaking with. So that's one thing that you can do after your speaking session, because then that will also dictate your follow-up process. What we did as speakers and as consultants is we actually met with people. We gave them a template out of our session and just said, hey, like, go to your hotel room tonight and do these things. It'll take you 30 minutes, and then actually come back tomorrow, grab us, we'll review it with you live. All of these things are planted seeds that allow me reasons to follow up that have been one-to-one relationship builders.
One of the things you mentioned in your podcast is that the follow-up connections with the email connect on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is for networking. If you shoot them an email, you're selling. So the idea here is that you're big on personal connections, and the fact that you're talking to people, you're greeting people before your session, after your sessions, you're building that connection, which I really strongly value, is that once I hit it off, or like there's a personal connection with someone, one, I'll remember them, two, they'll remember me as well. So it becomes much easier to build trust and then go from there as opposed to just go for the sale.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. The other thing I'll call out on LinkedIn versus email. LinkedIn is public, email is private.
So what kind of measures can people put in place in terms like everybody wants to talk about ROI, participating in events, they want to provide value, they want to also measure ROI for their audiences and themselves. Like what kind of KPIs we could look at from implementing this playbook?
Yeah. So the first thing is just like, what's the goal of the event? So everything we've outlined is how to book meetings, and it's helpful. Events for us are primarily an awareness level play. We're a hearts and minds type approach of winning people over. And what I find is, for like that 30 meetings, I did a speaking session that had 300 people. So I got 30 opportunities that then converted 15. So we got 15 new clients from that, which is amazing. And then the other component to think through, our primary goal and objective is audience size increases with people that are not actively engaged audiences in other places. So I do a lot on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, my audience is pretty good, but not everybody's on LinkedIn. But they go to events. So we get them on our email list, and then we follow up with them. And then we see people convert 9 to 10 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I know you have a really also unique way of thing that you have your podcast. You mentioned about the destination. You have somewhere to send them, which is still
yes,
also valuable and educational. Not everybody has that. Or do you suggest that they do?
I'm going to say this so bluntly, but like,
Go.
I mean, this advice won't work if you don't have anything valuable to say. Like, so if you don't have something valuable that's actually helpful for your buyers, like this doesn't work. Like
Don't.
you have to like, well, in that context, you only have the 3 days in person to convert. And like, that's just hard. So if
Yeah.
your entire strategy is only that, and there's nowhere to send them, and there's nothing else to do other than you can meet us at an event where we'll try to sell you, or you can go to our website where we're going to try to sell you, that's a hard road. Like,
It
but a
is.
podcast, I
Yeah.
outbounded 60 CMOs this morning, and within 30 minutes, I already had 3 of them booked for a
For
podcast.
guests. So basically, the ones you would get as your guest are your potential key accounts that you want
Pretty
to get.
much. They're actually our exact target account list. And like,
Hmm.
I'm a nobody for some of these CMOs, and like, they've never heard of me, and they immediately said yes within literally 30 minutes of getting the message. Like, that's actually
Hmm.
how it works. It just takes a long time.
It's
This stuff is like,
consistency. I think the key is
yeah.
consistency also. That is so true. Thank you so much, Mason, for joining me today. Lots of information. Feel free to follow us for next guest and talk to you soon.